Right, so Jess Phillips, the MP, caught on camera laughing about the fact her own party were going to lose the 2019 general election, might have felt like the cat that got the cream back then. Those rotten lefties getting a beating, but she's not laughing so much now as the campaign behind Workers' Party of Britain candidate Jody McIntyre has just been given a massive boost. Phillips was already fighting an uphill battle in one of the most Muslim-dominated constituencies in the country as a result of Keir Starmer's position on Israel and Gaza and his support for war crimes, which he still denies ever saying, despite having said it in a filmed interview, resulting in a massive loss of, yes, Muslim voters that traditionally back Labour, but equally voters of all other demographics as well, equally disgusted. The combination of these two issues means getting rid of an MP who spends her time on social media seemingly talking about nothing but herself, who cheered her own party's demise at the last general election, just got a whole lot easier. A lot more likely, in fact. And you could therefore say karma has finally come for her. Right, so Jess Phillips, Labour MP for Birmingham Yardley, a favourite of the mainstream media, which in no small part is what she is largely only known for. It certainly isn't her achievements in Parliament, which are particularly thin on the ground. If you bother to take a look at her Wikipedia page, for example, if you care to give that a quick scan, seemingly it consists of nothing but the controversy she courts in the media, and her social media seem to consist a little more than talking about herself. But she's now looking like she's in the fight of her life to just remain an MP, where once upon a time she actually harboured delusions of leading the party, and, well, not all that long ago. On one hand, she has a problem many other Labour MPs share at the moment, which is that they owe their majorities and their seats to not insignificant numbers of Muslim voters. Voters who, like many of the rest of us, but as a demographic notably, have been horrified by the position of Labour under Keir Starmer on the matter of Israel and Gaza, Palestinians being majority Muslims themselves. Starmer having said Israel has the right to cut off power, cut off food, and having never apologised for it, just denied ever having said it, demonstrates on one hand a man who is a consummate liar, who cannot acknowledge their own personal failings or the hurt caused by that, but on the other exemplifies the hierarchy of racism that seems to be endemic within the Labour Party now. Disproportionate numbers of ethnic minority candidates having been targeted for deselection and replacement, and a particular note in the media right now, certainly since the election has been called, has been the treatment of Diane Abbott and Faiza Shaheen. Abbott having been reselected finally to stand for Labour, though quite why she wants to baffles me somewhat, and Shaheen, a pro-Palestine supporter just like McIntyre, seemingly punished for that after being replaced by a Luke Akehurst lackey and fellow Zionist from the Labour to Win right-wing Labour faction. She has now quit the Labour Party and announced she's standing as an independent for the seat she's been building up for Labour for the last 4 years. As the well-known local face, I wish her the best of luck in what could well be now another uphill climb for her. But as far as Jess Phillips goes, though, according to the 2021 census, her seat of Birmingham Yardley is the 12th most Muslim constituency in the country, with 35.4% of the population, over 1 in 3, identifying as Muslim. So that is a massive amount of votes to lose. And with a majority of 10,659, just a little more than Labour were holding in Rochdale when they lost that seat to George Galloway, that majority of hers, incidentally, is down by a third from 2017 at the height of Corbyn's leadership. But still up, interestingly enough, from what she got in 2015 when she became an MP, when Ed Miliband was leading Labour, having taken the seat from the Lib Dems at that point. They got punished quite heavily in that election, in case you've forgotten. So a decent Labour leader does appear to be reflected in the results that Phillips has enjoyed in 2017 and still held in 2019 at the last general election. And as much as this election is about getting the Tories out in so many people's minds, the Tories haven't actually held Birmingham Yardley since 1987, so that isn't really the focus in this particular seat at all. It's a Labour defence, being defended when many of the voters there, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, are affronted and offended by the party their MP represents. In fact, such an issue is this for Labour that despite a not insignificant majority of 10,659, Phillips's seat is being listed as a battleground now by the Labour Party's own website, because Labour, as much as they might be looking at taking seats off the Tories, are looking like they may well lose seats they already hold at the same time. And when you consider they've been out of power for 14 years and the Tories are now so corrupt, so rancid and so awful, it really does speak volumes of how little faith many people, especially in these Muslim populous areas, have in Keir Starmer and the Labour Party led by him. The thing is, Phillips knows all this too. She's known for some time. That's why she resigned last November from the only front bench role she has ever held, the Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding gig, over Starmer's refusal to back a formal ceasefire, favouring instead humanitarian pauses, so some aid could get in before the resumption of atrocities by Israel on Gaza. Being from very much the same right wing of the Labour Party as Starmer, this was widely viewed, blatantly seen by many people in this country, as Phillips thinking it is no good being a potential minister in government if I lose my seat trying to get there, and decided the seat had to come first. And again, this emphasises the influence of Muslim voters in her constituency, that she knows she cannot afford to lose them, that she probably has lost a massive chunk of them already, and if she does, will only have herself and Starmer to blame for the direction Labour's gone in. At least you kept your seat under Corbyn, Jess, whilst you laughed about the Tories winning another 5 years under Boris Johnson, though, eh? Not only that, but Phillips, despite all denials, appears to have been exposed as being a parliamentary supporter of Labour Friends of Israel, and continuing to be a Labour friend of Israel in effect, since none of those MPs have reneged on their support from LFI at any point since atrocities began in Gaza, or have done so going into this election, not that I've seen anyway. In fact, Labour Friends of Israel have removed their supporters list of parliamentary MPs going into this election to try and shield them from being singled out over it. However, the electronic Intifada news site has rumbled them, not least Phillips herself. LFI is proud to be supported by Labour parliamentarians in the UK Parliament, Scottish Parliament, Welsh Senate and local government who support our values and aims, the list began. The list certainly includes Phillips, who appears to have been a supporter of the Israel lobby group for many years. As recently as October, she was described in a Labour Friends of Israel Twitter posting as LFI parliamentary supporter at Jess Phillips. LFI also posted a clip of Phillips in Parliament calling for supporters of Palestinian resistance to face the full force of the law. She played a big part in fanning the flames of the fake Labour anti-Semitism smear campaign, which was designed by Israel and its lobby to remove Corbyn, a Palestine solidarity activist. So far, so many reasons for Jess Phillips to be in a lot of bother with her constituents. But as of yesterday, things just took a dramatic turn for the worse for Phillips. Last night it was announced by Workers' Party of Britain candidate for Birmingham Yardley, Jody McIntyre, that all independent candidates who had put themselves forward to stand in the seat were now going to stand aside for McIntyre, giving him a clear run at Phillips. Himself a Muslim, himself a pro-Palestine activist. He actually lived in Gaza for a while, going up against Phillips, the LFI supporter, at a time when Muslim voters are deserting Labour in their droves. It simply isn't the case that Muslim voters have nowhere else to go in Birmingham Yardley, or anyone else equally disgusted by Labour's stance on Gaza, or indeed Phillips's perceived opportunism, voting against her own party on a Gaza ceasefire, against her own faction in effect, because she feared for her seat then and fears for it even more now. And that allegation of opportunism gives rise to hypocrisy, according to an incident alleged by Jody McIntyre on his social media earlier today, where he said, "I've just received a message from a supporter of mine who had Jess Phillips knocking at her door yesterday. When the constituent mentioned that she would be voting for me instead, Phillips called me an opportunist. I first lived in Gaza in 2009 and have campaigned for the rights of the Palestinians ever since. Phillips is a Labour friend of Israel, trying to conceal that fact to secure votes. I'll let you decide who the opportunist is." Well, he's not wrong. And if Phillips is verbally slagging off her opponent in such a manner on the doorstep, it not only belies her real fear that she's going to lose her seat, but also that democracy terrifies her just as much, and indeed she is running scared of Jody McIntyre. Indeed, let the public decide who the opportunist is in Birmingham Yardley. McIntyre has been a pro-Palestine campaigner for years. Footage from several years ago first brought Jody McIntyre to public attention when the police at one such demonstration dragged him from his wheelchair and across the street in an appalling scene of police brutality, where they alleged this was done for his own safety, perversely, making the entire thing all the more of a disgrace, and the footage is still readily available on social media. McIntyre would, aside from this key election issue, whether you agree it should be or not, is by the by, the actions of both the Tories and Labour have made the issue of Israel and Gaza a election campaign issue for an awful lot of people. But the other thing that would make him so brilliant is the fact that disabled people are sorely underrepresented in Parliament, have been for too long, and he would be a brilliant voice and advocate for them. Their rights so severely trampled all over need to be highlighted more. And as an unpaid carer myself, well, I can't deny there's a small bit of bias in my belief in this, but we desperately need more MPs like Jody McIntyre. We need more MPs representing disabled people from that demographic, and far, far fewer people like Jess Phillips. I wish Jody the very best of luck. I'm delighted that so many, even formerly rival candidates, are now swinging behind him. I made a more detailed video on Jody McIntyre, and this video recommendation here. He's a truly fascinating guy. He would make a belting MP worthy of the privilege, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.